Good morning, everyone. As you're joining us, we will give it a couple more minutes. We are expecting quite a large attendee list this morning, so you're very welcome. And while you're waiting, if you would like to scan the QR code on there, that will take you to the webpage on our website that gives you a bit more information about today. So we'll just give everyone a little bit of time to come in from the waiting room. If anyone would like to post into the chat, introduce yourself, then please do feel free to do that. Okay, right, so I think we'll get started. So good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today. It's a bit of a milestone for us on the DBAA project to be launching this call for partners to trial some of our research and training and networking initiatives that we've been developing for a while. So we're going to talk you through those today. Bit of housekeeping to start with, and that is just to say that this session is being recorded and will be uploaded via a link on our website to our YouTube channel, so you will be able to look at both this afterwards. And also just to say that if you could keep your mics muted while we're going through the main presentation, we'll be very grateful. And then there will be a chance for Q&A at the end where you are free to unmute yourself as we call on you to ask any questions. But also feel free to ask questions into the chat while we're talking, and the team will pick those up as we go through. Okay, so the agenda for today is, first of all, for me to give you a little bit of an overview of the DBAA project. My name is Professor Alison Truelove. I'm a professor in the business school at the University of Exeter, and I'm project director of the DBAA project. Then we're going to be turning to Dr. Joe Bowler, who is Impact Fellow on the DBAA project, also based at Exeter. And then Dr. Eleanor Brown, one of our engagement managers, will talk through the practicalities of how to apply and how to get involved with these initiatives. And then we'll have a Q&A at the end where you can ask any questions that you might have. But as I said, please feel free to ask any questions in the chat as we're going through. So we've got three of us talking to you today, but we are quite a large team based at the University of Exeter. So I'm just sharing on this slide those smiley faces of the rest of my team based in the business school, so you can see who they are. You may well, if you are successful in putting a bid in to run initiatives in your own context, have contact with any members of these team. And indeed, you may already have. I know over the last couple of years, we've had lots of great conversations with people across the whole country, lots of different universities, as we've been building up our evidence base and getting to this stage. So the project started back in 2022. We were awarded £5 million by the Research England Development Fund to take forward a 4-year project looking at how we can increase early career researcher readiness to engage beyond academia, not only to create more impactful research, but also to create more impactful careers for those early career researchers. And when I talk about early career researchers within the context of the project, we are including doctoral candidates. So this is essentially looking at people really early in their research careers, PGR students and postdocs, to make sure that we're really sort of getting that mindset in place so that as they progress through those research careers, they're thinking about the impact from the very beginning of designing their research questions, not just as an add-on once the publications have all been banked, and then they're thinking about what else and how people could use that research. So we have a range of partners within and beyond academia. As you can see on the right-hand side, we've got academic partners, but we've also got some industry partners and representation as well there from the third sector, from Cancer Research UK. And in everything that we're doing, we're really seeking alignment with national priorities and strategies from the government, from UKRI as the major funder here in the UK. And particularly, we're looking at economic and place-based growth and talent pipelines. So what the project is trying to do, I think, is very strongly in line with what is really being talked about quite a lot across the sector at the moment and beyond the sector, in fact, in terms of looking at the UK economy. Ultimately, in the project, what we're looking for is sustainable policy and practice outcomes that meet the needs of all of our stakeholders. So we're looking at this from the perspective of industry as well, and thinking about how they might benefit from interacting with researchers within academia. And we're looking at those structural constraints as well, not just thinking about from an individual level of a researcher what they need to do to be able to engage effectively beyond academia, but also what kind of structural things like promotion criteria, for example, we need in place to allow them to move into that space confidently. So over the last couple of years or so, we've established our sort of brand as a project, if you like. We have a very active LinkedIn profile now with, I think as of this morning, 1,765 LinkedIn followers. We have, at the last count, 792 newsletter subscribers, nearly 20,000 website users, and we've already put together 22 case study interviews that have then developed into case studies, some of which you can see on this slide here. And that really is to inspire those early career researchers so that they can see people like them already engaging beyond academia in all kinds of different ways, whether that's policy engagement or industry collaborations, to inspire them for what might be possible for themselves. Really, the project is looking at three main things. That is to inspire those early career researchers, demonstrating the value of engaging beyond academia, and those case studies contribute to that. We're then thinking about how we can equip them with the skills and knowledge that they might need in order to engage effectively. And then finally, those opportunities for engagement. So really designing, curating initiatives for that supported engagement, all informed by our research. We've done lots of work over the last couple of years in trying to understand what the barriers and the enablers and motivators are for better collaboration and research impact. We've learned a lot from the literature and the existing approaches. We've done quite a lot of landscape mapping, and we've built an evaluation framework to ensure that everything we're doing through the course of the project is fully evaluated so we can get a really good understanding of what works and, perhaps importantly as well, what doesn't work. So in combination with that research, what we're doing is we're working with those researchers, with external partners, to inspire, equip and engage, and then hopefully lead to impact for those individuals, but also for the research itself, and having an impact across the whole of the economy and society as that research starts to become more impactful and embedded beyond the university context. So I mentioned the evidence base. We have run 3 surveys now, one to inquire of researchers themselves, one that's gone out to those who support researchers, so they might be researcher developers, they might be people within innovation teams or others. And then we've also run a survey in conjunction with the CBI to really interrogate how industry is perceiving working with universities and researchers within those universities. And that report is also available on our website if you're interested. We've also run a whole series of focus groups, and thanks to many of you, I know there are some people here today who have run those focus groups on our behalf through that initial call that we had out last year. So we had a total of 246 focus group participants, and what all of this data is telling us is that both researchers and industry thought that greater collaboration would indeed unlock and accelerate innovation, and also that at the moment, academic researchers are not currently well equipped for working with business. What was really striking was that although the first 2 ranked priorities for industry and researchers were different, and you can say that inevitably industry is really interested in faster, quicker, simpler collaboration processes and wanting to see those businesses' priorities reflected in research. while researchers were thinking about their careers and making sure that if they engaged beyond academia, worked with industry, they wanted to see that feeding through to their own career progression. They wanted to see those reward and recognition structures in place. And of course, as well, they were looking for funding. For the third and fourth priorities, they were the same across industry and the researcher population. So both wanted increased awareness and visibility of opportunities to collaborate, and both wanted more of those opportunities to network with each other. So this is really at the heart of the DBAA project. It's bringing people together from across the university context, across the non-academic context, across industry, business, non-profit, private sector, public sector, trying to think how we can bring them together to demystify what it means to collaborate. And I'm not going to linger on this slide, but I just thought that you would be interested to see what those key barriers, enablers, and motivators were that we were taking from all of that research. And just to confirm as well that we are also then looking at running some industry roundtables to interrogate further the perspective of industry over the next few months. And we're working in collaboration with Crack BTI, looking at their CEDARS analysis and looking at that through the DBAA lens. So that's something to look out for over the next few months as well. So all of our work to this point has taken us to the position where we have identified some really key opportunities for us as a project, and therefore working with you as well on these. So the first of these is to embed business awareness into existing research and development provision, rather than necessarily see it as a standalone separate activity. There's some really good practice going on. There's some really amazing training opportunities, immersive opportunities already out there. And we think there is a real opportunity here to embed some of the things that we have discovered are useful for researchers early in their careers into those existing initiatives. It's also really struck us that a lot of good work that's going on within universities isn't very well joined up within those individual institutions. So there's a real opportunity here to create better connections across innovation enterprise teams and the disciplines and the researcher developers that exist already within universities. There's also much more opportunity than is currently being harnessed around those existing networks, connections, and collaborations that exist across universities. So we think that there is a huge potential here to think about how we already work with businesses. We can look at alumni contacts, we can look in business schools at the SMEs that they work with across local regions. But there are many, many more networks, connections, and collaborations that we can also look at as we're trying to develop these approaches. It's also really clear that researchers are very focused on the research they're doing. Inevitably, they can become quite focused, necessarily so, to do well in that research, and lose the sense of how that research might be translated beyond academia, or indeed how the key knowledge and skills that they're developing can be translated across into other realms and other areas. It isn't always the precise research expertise, it can be the methodologies, for example. So they do need help, I think, more than they have in many places at the moment, to explore that potential value of that expertise beyond academia. We've also seen a really clear opportunity for co-mentoring, linking somebody within academia to somebody in industry. This does happen in some places, but there is certainly potential to go further. And the overriding thing that has really come out of the research is that we really should be focusing on experiential learning opportunities for these researchers, supported by workshops that might be a little bit more didactic, a little bit more knowledge and skills acquisition focused. But it's the experiences, it's those immersive experiences, getting out of their comfort zones, getting out of their labs, out of the libraries, out of away from their desks, and talking to industry, connecting with them, and really starting to understand those different contexts where their research can be applied for greater impact. So at this point, I'm going to pass over to Jo, and she's going to talk you through some of the initiatives that we've already run and how that relates to what we would like now to offer out to the rest of the sector to run on our behalf. So over to you, Jo.
Thanks, Alison. Hi, everyone. I'm Jo Bowler, Research Impact Fellow at the University of Exeter Business School, working on this project. So the slide in front of you now are the pilot initiatives that are going to be available as part of this call. These are initiatives that we have developed based on the evidence that Alison outlined at the start. And we have piloted these multiple times with now more than 200 researchers, and we've carefully evaluated them. So we have a fairly good sense now of what works well, where the pitfalls are, and so we can really work with you to make sure that you're fully supported if you choose to pilot these as part of the core. Next slide, please. They are all evaluated with quantitative and qualitative. So we're asking people for comments, feedback, perceptions, how they felt, but also quantitatively in terms of measuring the increase or change in confidence, competence, and number of connections before and after the events, and then following up longitudinally with a follow-up survey for participants 1 month after the initiative or the event, and 6 months after. So we don't expect people who, for example, went to a workshop to immediately have made a connection, but they may well have used the skills they developed to build connections after a month or after 6 months. So we are gradually building a picture of how these initiatives are improving researcher confidence, competence, and connections. And we have shown that overall there is an average increase in all of these areas for the people who have been part of our pilots. Next slide, please. So I'll go through each of the 4 initiatives in detail, starting with the workshop. This is a more formal learning experience. So this is, generally speaking, developed for use with a group in a seminar room using a kind of classic workshop format. It's been developed to really inspire and equip researchers for effective external engagement. We have developed template resources, activities, and facilitator notes and slides, so that if you want something that is essentially out of the box, we can provide those templates, and you'll be able to pick and choose from the activities within them to tailor to your specific researcher audience, and of course the expected external engagement that you're anticipating for them in the future. We have found we have trialed various different ways of running this workshop, and we found that the most impactful way, the way that researchers get the greatest benefit, is when you have co-facilitation by external partners. So that means, for example, an industry expert coming in and the opportunity to do some informal networking afterwards. So it becomes something of a hybrid, but with the main emphasis being on skill acquisition and practicing those communication skills. Next slide, please. We've got some more information about the workshop. So yeah, I mean, it's designed specifically to support researchers develop the knowledge, skills, and confidence, especially around communication skills. It ideally serves, and we have used it to serve as a preparatory event for a more experiential learning initiative, which I'll go into later, but the other 3 initiatives are really immersive. Researchers are in the same space as the people that they may want to connect with. So this workshop works really well as preparation for that. It's typically delivered in sort of minimum 90 minutes, but can extend for a full day depending on the time available and the content. Delivered by an experienced facilitator, and we have also delivered it online, and we have had success there. So we've had really positive evaluation feedback from in-person and online, although personally I feel like the in-person workshops feel a little bit, they have a little bit better energy. So just this picture on the right-hand side, transforming research into action. This is an example of a workshop that we ran for AI-focused researchers, and we have found that the workshops work well with interdisciplinary groups, but it really helps if you have a theme. So this was an AI theme, And for that, we brought people into the room. We also brought along the innovation team, where they were able to introduce some of the support network within the university, so that when a researcher makes a connection with an external partner, they know where to go for support. We also had 2 external industry speakers with experience of collaborating with universities, and they were able to give top tips, their insights on what works well, what doesn't work so well. And we also had a speaker who was a researcher. She has lots of external industry connections, lots of experience, and she was really able to enthuse, inspire, and talk about her personal experiences. In addition to that, we had communication skills, an opportunity for researchers to really critically assess their own research skills, from study design, methodology, use of equipment, data collection, data analysis, and then, of course, the end point, which is, what does their research say? And that's really to make the point that researchers don't have to be working in applied research to have really exciting, interesting touch points with industry at almost all points of their research. And so we run exercises to make sure researchers are really fully aware of all the opportunities that are open to them. And we also do an introduction to intellectual property, so that people are ready for understanding how much they can say when they're in a networking situation. Okay, next slide, please, Alison. So next up is the exhibition experience. So once researchers are feeling confident, are confident in articulating clearly their research, or the area of their research that they think is a really good hook for industry, we found that taking researchers in groups to industry conferences, or at least mixed academic industry conferences that have a kind of trade show exhibition, having a conference stand really immerses participants in an industry environment. It gives them the chance to gain practical experience talking about their research with non-academic organisations. And when they're on a conference stand, it's a kind of natural, low pressure, low stakes opportunity. People walk up to the stand and go, hey, what do you do? There's no need to kind of have that awkward conversation where you're approaching someone in a busy room where everyone's holding a cup of coffee. So it's worked really well, and we've had great feedback from the ones that we've run so far. Next slide, please. So researchers generally join a departmental or university exhibition stand. We've trialled both. We've had a DBAA exhibition stand, and we've also joined a university exhibition stand. The experience is really flexible. It depends on the length of the conference, the amount of time that your partners are going to be there for, in terms of partners. If it's a departmental stand, it really helps to have an experienced facilitator joining the group on the stand, running through a few top tips. Don't forget, this is a great way to start a conversation. Don't forget, these are the key points that you should be getting across if people come to the stand to ask information about what it is you're talking about. And a sense of group and community really builds confidence amongst the researchers who are there. And one example that we trialled in partnership with Cancer Research Horizons, which is the translational arm of Cancer Research UK, was having a conference stand at their Innovation Summit, where they had convened a whole range of different companies working in the cancer research space. Academic researchers and clinicians were part of this conference, giving talks and so on. And we were just there as a base for early career researchers to come, feel safe, have lunch on our table behind the roller banner, and use our stand as a space in which to start conversations. And we had really good feedback from that. And so we would love to trial that more widely across the country and get more feedback and really understand where that can be a benefit to researchers. Next slide, please. Next up, another immersive experiential initiative. This is taking researchers to a workplace. This is a chance to experience culture in a way that you can't experience in a workshop location. It's walking around, it's seeing people at work, it's understanding where they have lunch, it's understanding the culture and feel of a place. We have led knowledge exchange activities in the workplace, bringing together employees and researchers to discuss to discuss topics that are pertinent to that industry partner. And it's a real opportunity to build relationships. This can be with early career industry employees and early career researchers. So it's about building relationships at the start of careers on both sides, so that in the future, if there are joint grant applications, if you're looking for a partner, you know who to call. Next slide, please. So yeah, as I mentioned, we have run these. We've had tours of facilities, presentations on university culture, and some of the limitations that researchers face. The structural limits, the pressures, the priorities that are on researchers when they're just trying to have a research career, and then having an industry counterpart giving the equivalent. Well, these are the priorities. This is the promotion criteria. This is how we work. Also understanding the different approach to innovation, how innovation projects are structured in research and in industry. So really having both sides of the story presented to each other, followed by, we have run facilitated roundtables exploring specific innovation topics, followed by informal networking and also facilitated networking. It does require a really good relationship with an industry contact in the company who is able to book the room, arrange the date, convene the employees, make sure they're in the right place at the right time. And so there is an element of relationship building there that needs to be done in advance. And again, we do highly recommend that academic researchers who are going to take part in an event like this have the experience of preparatory workshop beforehand. The event you can see here on the right, this is the Amazon UK headquarters in London, where because we're based in the University of Exeter Business School, we have a really good relationship with Amazon through the degree apprenticeship scheme. And so we leveraged that contact there to actually put together the event with us. And the employees who have been through the apprenticeship scheme were the employees that the researchers met. So it's a kind of good example of using existing relationships to run these events. We went up to London and we had a tour of the facilities, and we did the events and presentations and facilitated networking that I've just described. And again, the feedback from that event was really positive on both sides, on the industry and on the researcher side. So lastly, the last immersive experiential initiative that we have trialed is the networking event. And this is a much more flexible format with lots of scope for personalization to specific contexts. We have used it to collaboratively explore different approaches to innovation, but also problem-solving specific challenges. We have used it as an opportunity for facilitated and informal networking with really mixed groups. And again, it's a chance to build relationship skills and confidence for researchers. Next one, please. So I'll give the example. So, we've put indicative timescale 2 hours to 1 day. We ran something in the middle of the day, starting late morning, finishing with a networking lunch that we were really pleased. People stayed for a good 90-minute lunch where there was informal chatting afterwards. We ran an event with Babcock International Group, a large engineering services company. They outlined 4 challenges, quite pressing challenges that they're facing. And we convened researchers who were pertinent to addressing those challenges from across the country. We ran a preparatory workshop to make sure that the researchers were really understood what the challenges were, understood how their research applied, understood how to really clearly articulate how their research applied to these challenges. And then we convened everybody in a single room for this 1-day event, where we had, again, presentations on workplace culture, So there was an element, we started off with icebreakers, presentations on workplace culture, so that people understood how there was support in place, how different styles of working, how different styles of neurodiverse working were supported. And then we went into facilitated roundtables using an ideas canvas, so these innovation techniques to make sure that everybody had a chance to speak, everybody felt supported, and ultimately solving these challenges with research. And we're really pleased with the outcome of that, and it's actually led to a funded proposal to take forward some of the ideas that were discussed there through an EPSRC funded project. So increasingly we are seeing positive outcomes of the events, but we have only done 6 months worth of trials, and we are really keen to see how these scale nationally. Next slide, please. So ethical considerations. We are a research project. These, as I explained earlier, are evaluated under the University of Exeter Business School ethics. And everything we do has to essentially come back to the guidelines that we have outlined in the ethics application. Facilitators will be briefed beforehand. Facilitators will also be part of the research study. Everybody who takes part, facilitators and research participants, will have to sign an informed consent form. So informed consent is paramount. Everyone will read a participant information sheet and sign the consent form. Participation must be voluntary. So you can't mandate that a group all joins. This is a self-selection. People must be free to choose to take part. Evaluation is with pre, post, 1 month post and 6 month post surveys, which the DBAA project will provide. There's no need for you to set up your own surveys. That's all standardized. And there is an element of data collection, management and storage, and all details about how that will be managed will be given as the next stage after the expression of interests stage is over. So that's there. It's important to realise that this is a research project, and data collection, data management is really important, but it's something that we can provide lots of information about in the next stage of the project. And I think with that, I will hand back to Alison for the application overview.
Yeah, at this point, I'm actually going to hand to Eleanor.
So, sorry,
Eleanor, I think you're going to talk us through. Thank you, Eleanor. Thanks, Jo.
Yeah, thanks, Jo and Alison. Lovely to see you all today. Yeah, we're going to have a look now at the application process and what's involved. So first of all, we're taking a look at the eligibility and the scope of what the funding can be used for. So we are open to higher education institutions that are eligible to receive Research England funding. Now, this means that we will also consider applications that bring together researchers from a range of HEIs, and that might be through mechanisms such as consortia, mission groups, collaborations or networks that you have. But in that case, where you're bringing together a collective approach, the funding and the responsibility for outcomes must still sit within that single HEI in England. But it does leave a broad range of options for you to consider in terms of how you're putting together your application and who you might be partnering with to do so. We'll have a look at the eligibility the selection criteria in a little bit more detail in a moment. Next, let's have a look at how the funding can be used to cover delivery costs. So we're very aware that this is something that can be a critical mechanism to help you put this activity in place. So we're anticipating that your approach to delivery costs might include the things indicated there on the slide, such as hire of rooms, refreshments, travel expenses for researchers and partners to be able to engage in your activity. And it can also cover the costs of additional staff where required that might be brought in to facilitate, organise or recruit to and deliver these events. So Alison, next slide, thank you. So getting involved. This is a two-stage process, and this stage one we're outlining today is the expression of interest, which is open from today until the 1st of May 2026. At this stage, we're really looking to understand your context. You've heard Jo outline the type of activity that we've templated, and the expression of interest is your opportunity to tell us and outline your suitability to organise and host those proposed initiatives in your context. So we're really interested to hear about what you think might work for your situation, what kind of partners and timelines you might be working to. Once we've received those expressions of interest, the DBAA team will then be applying selection criteria and inviting successful applicants to take forward to the next stage of a full proposal. The proposals really provide fuller details around those same points. So at that stage, we'll be working with you more closely on a one-to-one basis to ensure that your proposal has included all of those things around identifying the partners that you're going to be working with, the groups of researchers that you might be bringing together. I'm aware that there's some great questions in the chat about, kind of subsectors of research, disciplines, industry sectors, etc. So this is where all of that can come to life in your proposal process, and you're ensuring that it suits the context that your institution is based in. Thanks, Alison. Okay, so let's take a look at the selection criteria that's going to be applied here. So tying back to that local context, you'll see that our selection criteria really asks you to draw on existing connections, both internally and externally. We're also going to be ensuring that you're clearly outlining how you're able to recruit researchers to these activities. And that could include working with existing events, so going to where the researchers are. That's something that's worked really successfully when we piloted activity, is applying these activities to existing events where you know that researchers are going to be. We're also looking at value for money principles in how you can make things happen, and ensuring that the DBAA initiatives that take place address a diverse range of contexts. So I'm just there's quite a lot of detail in the slide there around the criteria that apply. So I'll just leave that on the screen for a moment so you have a chance to read that before we move on to the next slide. Okay, thanks, Alison. And lastly, the support available. So through this expression of interest process over the next month, we've got lots of support in place. You'll find the information that you need on our website when it comes to supporting documents, frequently asked questions. We're going to be updating those as we go through as well. So where we're finding those common questions, we'll update the FAQs. You'll also find sign-up forms for optional open Q&A sessions. If you're finding you've got questions that aren't answered through that information, then you're more than welcome to email us to ask those questions, and the team will be happy to support you. If we require some more detailed support, or you would like some more detailed support, then you can ask us to meet with you to help develop your expression of interest or answer those more complex questions. And we would encourage you, if you've got questions that you feel comfortable asking in an open forum, then you consider signing up for these optional open Q&A sessions. So we've put 2 of those in place, and you're very welcome to sign up and just ask those questions that might occur to you as you're going through the expression of interest process. Over the next month, I'm your lead contact through this process, and you've got the contact details there for DBAA email and website. And I believe that comes to the end of this support section, and I'll hand back to Alison. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Eleanor, and thank you, Jo, as well, for going through all of those initiative opportunities as well. So we've got lots of questions coming up into the chat. So we will, as a team, start looking through those and pulling them out. If you do have a question you'd like to come in and speak to, then please feel free to put your hand up. Just click on the raise hand button at the top of the screen or wherever that is on your screen, and we can bring you in. So I'm just going to start picking up some of the questions. The one I can just see immediately is, what is the deadline for the full proposal? So as Eleanor mentioned, there is a deadline for the expressions of interest, and that's the 1st of May. But in terms of the full proposal, if you are invited to put forward a full proposal after your expression of interest has been accepted, then the full proposals will be developed on a rolling basis. So we're going to be working very closely one-to-one, as Eleanor mentioned, with people who are able to take forward a full proposal. And as I say, once they're ready, they can be submitted. And this allows us to work in a really agile way. For those people that are ready sooner to start running their initiatives, we're keen for that to happen as quickly as possible. So if everything is looking as though it can come together quite quickly, then that should happen on over a shorter timescale. But for people who have got a little bit more planning and thinking to do, then those full proposals might take a little bit longer, and they might come in a little bit later in the year. But we do need all of these initiatives to be completed by the end of this calendar year, by the end of 2026. We will review the applications that we've had and the initiatives that we are able to run during that time frame. And if it looks like we still have the capacity and the funding to be able to support further initiatives to test out these approaches even further, then there may be a later opportunity to do that. And we may put a second call out later this year to try and pick up some more expressions of interest as well. Are we planning to have another course? Yes, I think I've just answered that, Carmen. We're going to see how we get on with this initial call. We may be inundated with offers of really excellent plans for initiatives. If we do, then we may not need to go out again. But if we find that there are gaps, for example, particular disciplines that are not very well represented, or particular types of initiatives that we feel we need more evaluation data to be able to decide whether they work or not, and in what sort of context, then we may put very specific calls out for very specific types of asks later in the year. There's a question around a maximum amount of money you can apply for. At this stage, you're not applying for a particular amount of money. You're just being asked to think about what you might need. We have a really good understanding of what kind of money is required for the different types of initiatives through our own trials. So we will work with you at the full proposal stage, if you get to that stage, to work out what we can fund. We know that some of these initiatives are quite inexpensive. If you're just running a workshop for researchers within your own university, it may just be that you have a minimal cost, and it may just be a few £100s. For some of the bigger events, some of the places, for example, at the industry exhibitions, where there is a cost to have a stand, it could run into several thousands if you're looking at having to cover costs for a larger group of researchers, for example. So at the moment, we're not mentioning any particular figures. We're going to be working those through with applicants as we go through. Is this a one-time opportunity? Yeah, again, I think I've answered that, Julia. We are accepting proposals until the funding runs out. Not quite. So we're obviously, we do have a limited budget. We want to make sure that the budget is used as sensibly as possible and as effectively as possible to reach as wide a group of researchers and institutions in geographic locations across the whole of England, if possible. So we do have a ceiling, but we do have capacity at the moment to be looking quite broadly. Anna's asked, do we need to be offering all of the initiatives? No, absolutely not. What we do ask is that if you are offering a networking event, an exhibition experience, or an industry visit, that you also will be needing to run a workshop to offer that to researchers as preparation for that. So you can opt just to run a workshop, but as I said, we really strongly recommend that you explore the immersive opportunities as well, because they seem to be the most effective. But you can offer more than one. So you could pick all of them if you think you've got the capacity to do that, but you would need to have a clear plan of what that might look like. Specific themes, this is where we are really, and this is partly why we're going out to the whole country. We really want a very broad range of types of initiatives for lots of different research areas. We are trying to reach researchers from across all disciplines. We are particularly underrepresented in terms of the researchers we've worked with already across the HAS disciplines, so humanities, social sciences. We've tended to work with people more at the moment from the STEM disciplines. So we're really keen, if you've got researchers from a humanities background, for example, that you think would benefit from participating in these sorts of initiatives, then please do think through how you would get them in the room. I mean, this is in the end one of the challenges, and one of the things that we are going to be offering to all successful applicants who take through to full proposal stage is a really comprehensive document that we've produced that sets out the optimal conditions for running these events, so that they can be really enticing for the researchers that you want to benefit from the various events. Mohammed is asked about tied to England base. Yes, I'm afraid we are, because it's Research England funding. As Eleanor mentioned earlier, we can only give funding out to other English higher education institutions. We have been told, though, that if there are researchers from the devolved nations who would like to participate in something, perhaps you're close to a border and you've got researchers in a neighbouring country who would like to participate. We're part of GW4 down in the southwest. We have Cardiff as part of that network. So I think it would be possible for PhD students, early career researchers from Cardiff, to participate in some of the initiatives that other universities within England are running, but we can't allocate funding directly to those. So collaborations don't have to be region specific. The Babcock event that Joe talked about earlier involved researchers coming in from all over the UK, coming to Exeter. So it might be that you're looking on a regional basis, but it might be that you're looking on a discipline or theme basis where you are involving people from a wider geographic area. How much funding is available? Again, I think I've spoken to that already. And 20, yes. So we need at least 20 for the evaluation to be useful. But we would ideally be looking at you recruiting at least 30 for each event that you run, and ideally more for some of the larger sort of networking events. But it's really bespoke to the individual circumstances. You do not need names of anyone at the moment. You just need to set forward in that expression of interest broad expectations of who you would want to involve. Gregory's asked about, is there any way we could identify common interests? I think that's really over to you to harness the connections you already have. So to think, if you're within a particular institution, think about the networks that you're already part of, think about the connections that you have, and maybe go to others within your organisation who may have those links if you don't already, to start exploring what those might be. Emily's asked about the application forms. They will be on the website by midday today. So the team behind the scenes is working really hard. The documents are all ready to go. So we will release those by the middle of today. The proposal needs to clarify how all these initiatives presented can be put in place. You can focus on one initiative, but if you have more than one, then you would need to treat each one separately unless they were linked, and then you would talk about in the application form about how they are linked. Is there an email template? Eleanor, I wonder if you would be able to answer that one. Is there an email template we can share with our internal colleagues to tell them about the initiatives so that we can use the correct terminologies and get internal collaborators, facilitators?
Yeah, thanks. Good question. We can definitely have lots of good material that you can use to draw on. I would suggest, though, that you're best at knowing your local context and how to talk to your internal collaborators. So we'll share what we have, and I'm sure that will be useful to support the emails that you want to send.
Thanks, Eleanor. We've got a question about, can funding be used to cover costs of paying the partner? That I think we would be asking if partners, industry partners, for example, were attending. That would be funding in kind, that they would be generous to coming along because they saw that there was a benefit for them to be there. And I think that's part of the work here, is that you have to be looking for mutual interest and mutual value. And what we found is that industry partners are more than willing to come along and cover their own costs if they can see a tangible benefit for them being there. So a potential research collaboration, for example. Joe, is there anything you'd like to add on that one?
No, other than when we've invited industry partners who have had to travel far to come and give a talk, we have offered to reimburse expenses for the day. I think that would be reasonable, but we haven't sort of paid a speaker fee or anything like that.
Great, thank you. Simone has asked, will we disclose the total budget allocation at the end of the programme? We report as required to Research England, and I believe at the end of the project that all of that information would be available. So we will also announce awards on our website. So we will publicise who has been successful in able to be able to run, but we wouldn't disclose all the details of exactly all the elements of that funding. Okay, can we apply? Unfortunately, no. If you're an independent scholar, you would need to have the support of a university. So there's nothing to stop you from getting involved with some of the initiatives, but the funding itself and the application, the expression of interest would need to come from an appropriate individual within a university. Carol's asked about the application form. Yes, absolutely. Everything will be shared on our website. So if you go onto our website later today, you will be able to access all of the documents and the form to apply. The document you mentioned regarding the visits procedural details available online, I think, Eleanor, I think that's probably referring to the next stage, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Once you go through to the proposal stage and look at the implementation of your activity, that's when we can share that more detailed information.
Yeah. Okay, and then I think some of these have been answered. Can we draw on industry partners previously used in the earlier stages of the initiative? I would suggest you use your own connections. So, you know, the people that we've already worked with have already participated in the programme. We are looking at this stage by going out to national partners to be looking at how you can harness those connections for yourselves. At the heart of this project is about building capacity across the sector. And we need to do this in a really cost-effective way. It is very easy for us to give you funding because we have funding for the project. But beyond the lifetime of the funding, we need to have some reassurance that what you are looking at trialing within your own institution would be sustainable beyond the lifetime of this project and without that funding. And this is why we're looking at how you use the capacity and the connections that you already have within your institutions, and that the funding we're able to give you is just a bit of pump priming for you to be able to try things and to develop an approach and create a business case so that you have a proof of concept essentially, and that you can then make the case within your own institution for ongoing investment in running these similar initiatives to support your researchers going forward. So as I say, it's very much about using the connections you already have, using the expertise you already have, and just using this funding to be able to cover the costs of running the initiatives on a trial basis, as I say, so that you can see that hopefully they work really well. And you can sustain beyond the lifetime of the DBAA project. Rough sense of the scale of funding. Yeah, again, I think, Phil, it's how long's a piece of string. You know, as I said earlier, some of these initiatives only need cost a few £100s if you're running them locally with a group of 20 to 30 researchers within your own institution. If you are going out and running stuff and you're having to hire a venue externally, if you're having to cover the costs for a large number of researchers travelling to a venue that is not their usual work location, if you are having to purchase an exhibition stand at an exhibition, that can run into the thousands. So it's really hard to give you a really defined figure on any of these elements here. I think it costs what it costs, and you will be asked to show in the expression of interest how you have looked at value for money for the reasons that I've just outlined in terms of sustainability of this provision going forward. How many applicants for the workshop and other initiatives, and what percentage participated? So the second part of that question is, of course, something I think that we all experience, which is that many more people will sign up for something than will actually turn up on the day. And we have all kinds of advice for you and how to publicise, how to market these opportunities. We have got a lot of things that we've discovered over the last year or so that have tended to drive up interest levels and drive up attendance levels for those that have signed up. I would say for some of the earlier initiatives, it was harder to recruit to. Now that we are better well known as a project, I would say we've sort of built up that campaign of why this is important. I think universities are also understanding now that this is important for their researchers. You know, research can't just stay within universities, they can't just stay locked away in the academic journals. There is an imperative there around diversifying income into universities through collaborative work, through jointly funded projects and programmes. And this is something that is coming through with UKRI strategies as well. So things are heading in the right direction, and I think people are understanding the benefits of these sorts of opportunities. So I think you'll probably find that we're able to give you lots of advice on how to ensure that you have good level of interest. But it's about, again, harnessing those connections. So putting a notice in a newsletter perhaps is less effective than having a specific initiative where you've got some targeted, some target researchers that you want to reach out to. The work really is going to their project supervisors, the PIs, to the network coordinators, and using those people as the brokers who can then find out who would most benefit and sign up. There's a question around facilitators. Again, we would expect you to be using expertise that you already have as far as possible. We can provide training for facilitators who are successful for initiatives that are successfully funded. But we can also give you some guidance as to how to find those. Other questions. If any neighbouring are keen to, okay, that's not my question for I think the general audience there. Surveys, templates, material be shared in the web. Yeah, so the materials will just be shared with the people who are successful in gaining funding, having completed the full proposal. But I think you'll find at the moment, once you go onto the website at midday, you will find all the documents that have lots more information in there at this stage. And I think that will be sufficient for you to be able to fill out an EOI at the moment. Looking to the rest of the team, have you picked up any other questions in the chat that I've not been able to get to?
No, I think we've covered a lot of them, and I've gone back on some of the individual ones as well, Alison.
Thanks, Sam. There's a question at the bottom: can the facilitators be external consultants? They can, but again, we would be looking for value for money. So there were some excellent external facilitators there. We've used them ourselves. We even employed one of them as part of our team. So we understand the value there, but we also need to make sure that the rates that they're charging are consistent with our expectations there, because if people are usually working just for industry, sometimes those rates can be quite considerable and wouldn't necessarily be value for money within an academic setting. Okay, right. So I think we're there with the questions. If we haven't picked any up from the chat, then we will put them up on our Q&A, our frequently asked questions, on our website. I think you can scan that QR code to sign up to our mailing list. So if you're not already on our mailing list, please do that. Feel free to reach out to us via email. Check out, as I say, the website in half an hour. All the documents should all be up there. And later today as well, the expression of interest form will be also available. There is a document also on our website, or will be at 12 o'clock, that has the full set of questions that are also in that Microsoft form as well. So you don't need to go into the form to see the questions. You'll be able to see those in a Word document as well. So thank you very much indeed for joining us today. It's been great to see so many of you here and so many familiar names as well. And we look forward to seeing your expressions of interest and working with you over the coming months. Okay, team. I think we can probably end the call. I think if there's anyone still on, they've probably just forgotten to leave.